Hello everyone, it is Alex Radical from Board Game Co. And today, instead of to back or not to back, we are doing all the pledge managers. Again, all the pledge managers again. And by the way, later this week, I'm going to have a different video where I talk about how instead of to back or not to back, we're doing all the Epic campaign games because I changed my schedule and I filmed that one already. So things change, we move with the times. In any case, so lots of things going on here. To begin with, any noises, background stuff, vacuuming, anything you hear in the background is because we are cleaning for Passover. It's a crazy time, crazy busy week for me. This Passover starts for me Sunday, Monday, so I'm offline this Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. I'll be completely offline. Lots of videos will go up. I will be replying to none of the comments until later, and then doing my best to catch up as much as I can. As far as that, today is Pledge Manager Day. So Pledge Manager means I did a video about 3 months ago, all the open pledge managers, and I think I'm aiming for roughly every 3 months for this video. More than that, and it's not enough new stuff. Further out and you start missing more and more stuff. Even at every 3 months, you're definitely going to miss a few things here and there that just pop up and leave before you have time. And for that, I say tune into my channel every single week for Monday, where I cover all the active Kickstarters, or at least most of them. Same terms as last time are going to apply today. We're going to be covering 100 different games, 100 different PMs that are open, and each of them I'm going to be covering as briefly as possible. Now, the last time I did this video, we covered 81 different campaigns. Since then, 29 of those 81 have closed. 29 of those PMs have closed in the past 3 months, leaving 52 open. 52 that we'll be covering today, in addition to 48 new ones that we'll be covering for the first time that we did not cover last time. I'm going to be starting with the 48 new ones, so we can go over all of those, and I'll be making it very obvious and a clear cut, including in the timestamps down below, as to when I'm going back to the 52 remaining from last time that are still open. Those 52 I'll be rattling through fairly quickly. But in case you watched the last video and you don't want to see the same stuff again, that's your cue to exit the video or head on to the end to see if there's any shenanigans at the end, because I don't have anything planned, but who knows what happens between now and then. Before we do any of that, we're going to be starting off with Death Valley, because Death Valley is a Kickstarter that closes in 5 days, because it's one of those button shy games that popped up and is going straight down, which means I haven't even looked into this myself, but just as a heads up, this is on Kickstarter if you want to check it out, and by the time I do my next to back or not to back video next Monday, well, this one's already going to be gone, so that's it. I did just get Ugly Griffin in, and I went from I'm going to get rid of this game to I think I'm keeping this game within 3 plays. So we'll see how that plays out, and I still have to get to the Food Chain Island is next. And with all that preamble aside, let's go ahead and start things off. And starting off in the bat, we're going to have, nope, this is not where I'm supposed to be going. I'm supposed to be going all the way over here to the new ones. This is one I did not cover last time. I think I touched upon it briefly when I was talking about Ascension, and then I kind of realized I didn't have Ignite. But this is the first one on this list because this one closes this week. So if you wanted to jump in on Ignite, it closes this week. I have a full video. I will not be including a link down below because I'll have way too many links as is that I'll already be pushing past the Kickstarter limits on what the YouTube limits and how many comments you can have, how many characters you can have in the description. Short version of Ignite is basically a deck builder skirmish game that I have played, that I have enjoyed. I do recommend it. It is very variable if you like deck builders, if you like Dominion, if you like skirmish games. It does combine them very nicely. I have a full Should You Back video on it if you want to check that out. Past that, late pledge is open for roughly another week. This is your opportunity to jump in on this one or not. Now is a good time to be mentioning that in these videos, because of how quickly I'm trying to go, I will not be covering the should you back it, should you not value proposition. I have full-on details for that. Maybe I'll mention notes here and there as I go, but I'm trying to rattle through this. Sheol board game. Sheol is going to be a Kickstarter that pulled me in to a degree, but also not as much as I, would have liked. There was no end-up thing that pulled me in at the end of the day, but it's one that has a tower defense aspect to the game as you try to structure these light paths that these beings feed into. It looked very innovative in what it was doing, but it was also expensive and didn't give a ton of content compared to the price point, at least compared to other similar things. It gave you a lot of content, don't get me wrong, but it didn't give you as much. So I didn't back this one in the end, but if you are pulled in by it, there is an active late pledge available because that is the point of this entire video. From there, we have Dawn of Madness. Dawn of Madness is going to come for you from Dimension Games. Dimension Games who brought you Deep Madness, and Dawn of Madness was their foray into more of a narrative experience, something that was different, interesting, and also, I watched the King of Average's coverage of it, and it didn't seem like it was a fully finished product. Now, they've addressed this. They've talked about it. They've talked about the fact that it's not a fully finished product. It was in development, and it is to some extent similar to when you back, what's the company? Chip Theory Games. When you back their last games, sometimes games on Kickstarter are very much in the development phase. The good news is it means there's a lot of room to grow. The bad news is it means you're backing the hope that this will become a great game as opposed to an actual great game in its current state or form, at least back then. That said, if you want to jump into more of the Deep Madness universe and more of a narrative aspect to it, well, this Pledge Manager is still open. Moving on from there, we have Monumental, reprint and new expansion, African Empires. This is one that I backed, then dropped, then backed again, because I liked Monumental but had issues with it, and then they have this, $200 edition. I don't think it was that much, but if you get all the Titans, which I did get because I have no self-control, if you get all the Titans, this was the one that it was long. It was $200 extra for a game that I was on the fence about, a game that I was not certain. I'm trying to find the Titans on the screen over here, and so ultimately it's one that I dropped. But then Jeremy Howard convinced me to continue giving Monumental more tries, more attempts, and I did. And so now I am the proud owner of $90 worth of giant pieces of plastic, in addition to the African Empires expansion, and eventually will be coming my way. But late pledge available. Go ahead and check that one out. I should stop saying late pledge available because that's true across the board. Tenaris Adventures, the late pledge that keeps on giving. This is Arena of the Contest, Tenaris Adventures, the expansion to Arena of the Contest, a game that I love, a game that I want to play more, a game that I'm waiting for the new content for, a game that I have done multiple videos talking about the closing late pledge aspect to this game, and the late pledge is still available. In fact, it actually did close at one point and then reopen so that you can jump in on this. And jump in on it, I do recommend. This is one that has so much content. This is one of those Kickstarter campaigns that gives you so much content that it reminds you of what it means to have stretch goal after stretch goal after stretch goal. Tons of miniatures, upgraded miniatures from your original game. Arena of the Contest delivers both a co-op and a competitive game modes to the game, as well as Tenaris Adventures very specifically focused on this dragon collection, and you can get these pre-painted dragons that will give you a ton of stuff. This is the part of the video where I apologize in advance for all the sheer amounts of miniatures and potential expenditures that are coming your way in case you thought you held off on these. From there we have Bullet, shoot 'em up puzzle action game. This is going to be by I can't remember the name of the company. What is the name of the company? It's not David B. Talton. It is Level 99 Games. Thank you. Level 99 Games, Bullet, about the shoot 'em up puzzle action game. This one actually looked fairly intriguing. It looked like it's a little like a puzzle arcadey style game. I covered the game when doing the campaign. It looked intriguing. I didn't end up backing this one, but I am still interested in what the game has to offer. If you're interested in a little arcade shoot 'em up style game, such as them with, a bunch of characters and whatnot, not a ton of exclusive, not a ton of stretch goals, a little bit, not a ton of extras, then check out Bullet. From there, we're going to go to Legacies. I covered this game briefly when I did a video together with Thinker Themer. I did a video top 10 upcoming Kickstarters that we are looking forward to, and Legacies was very much on their list. Now this one I kind of missed out on this originally when I was on Kickstarter. For some reason I saw it and I just kind of looked past it. The art didn't pull me in, and then I talked to Thinker Themer and I'm more pulled in by it. Now I have held off on the late pledge for this game. I have held off in backing this game. I've said, you know what, I'm just going to be firm. I have too many games coming in as it is. Now the question is, are you holding off, or have you already backed it? Why or why not? Legacies promises a deep immersive Euro experience then, and lots of cool stuff, including potentially getting your name on different cards, although I have no idea if those are still available for these. And this is a good time to mention before we go on to the next one, before we go on to Rallyman Dirt. In general, I should have said this at the beginning of the video, but if any of these are incorrectly not available, if I said, hey, this is available and it's not, do me a favor, let me know in the comments down below, because then that allows me to look into my own processes and see, did it just close in the past few days? Because that's just the price of doing business. But was it closed 3 months ago and somehow I missed this when going through and colligating? I can't think. Putting together the list of games that I wanted to cover. If it's something that in some way I was wrong about the information, I'd appreciate knowing, because that allows me to look into what processes I have and ensure that I am doing them better. But speaking of processes that I have, there's no connection whatsoever. But Rallyman Dirt. Rallyman Dirt is going to be the next version of Rallyman. Rallyman is a game that I was intrigued by, but I kept hearing from people who played both that Rallyman Dirt was the better iteration of the game. Cue all the people heading to Board Game Geek to sell their copy of Rallyman GT to get rid of that one and to get your hands on Rallyman Dirt. Although perhaps premature, Rallyman GT may be the game that is right for you. Rallyman, both these games are going to be re-implementations of the original Rallyman, which was out of print for a long time, and this is coming to you from, I can't remember the name of the company, but it's coming to you from Holy Grail Games, the company that brought you Museum, the company that brought you another game that I can't remember the name of. But Rallyman, a bunch of other games. They've had a bunch of games on their belt. I can click on their name. I can find stuff out. But Rallyman is going to be your racing game with chaotic pushing, whatever it is. And the game I'm thinking of is not Titan. It's Dominations. Dominations is a game that I liked but didn't love. And moving on from there, we have Hell of the Last Saga by Mythic Games. Now, this is one I actually will be talking about later this week as well, because I have a video coming up. I touched upon it already, which is going to be my 24 upcoming narrative-based games, or not narrative, 24 upcoming campaign-based games. Games that I own and are coming, and how I'm trying to manage which ones will stay and which ones will go in my collection. But Hell of the Last Saga is one that I could not say no to, specifically because even though I had a large degree of a lack of interest in this game, at the end of the day, the value of that core pledge, that $109 pledge, and all the stretch goals and miniatures it gave you was just a ton of stuff. This is stuff that you can turn around and sell them to some random non-gamer just for the miniature value alone. This was a solid pledge from Mythic Games. I did not go all in on this one. I'm so proud of myself. I go all in on everything. I did not go all in on this one. I went on the core pledge. I think I got like maybe one other thing. I can't remember what I got. I didn't get the NFL Viking chest. I may have gotten dice. I got one extra upgrade along with it, whatever it was. But Hell the Last Saga promises a narrative-based experience with gameplay as well. And I love the miniatures. I love the world building. I was not pulled in by the gameplay, but a large part of that is going to be because it was TTS. This was the onset of when we started to see in-person gameplays dropping out of the picture during the height of March, April, May of last year. And so things were crazy. Quackalope did a full TTS dive through of this game. I know people who have played and like this game. If you want to check this one out, it will absolutely hold its value, no questions whatsoever. The game being good or not, don't know yet. I know people who liked it. I don't know if I've talked to anyone who doesn't like it, but I'm sure someone didn't like it. But either way, that is Hell the Last Saga. From there we have the Reckoners, and more specifically, the Reckoners Steel Slayer. This is going to be coming to you from Navu Games. The Reckoners is a game that I love. I adore the Reckoners. Well, love is a strong word. I really like the Reckoners. While I like the core system of the gameplay, and it's tons of fun to roll the dice, I should do a playthrough with Ween on the channel, honestly. It's a really fun game. At the same time, the actual variability game to game does get a little stale. Once you go through that equipment deck and see everything, the game kind of is the same, and the heroes don't feel different. The villains, more specifically, the villains that are the heroes that are villains, don't really feel different. They just feel like, abstracted or whatnot. Overall, a solid game. Overall, a solid system. One that I'm happy to play, but one that I definitely jumped in on the expansion hoping it would provide more variability to a game system that I already enjoyed. Even if it doesn't, it'll probably be one that I pull out and play infrequently because it is fun in what it does. It's just not one that I want to pull out on a regular, repeated basis right now just because of that lack of variability in what the game does and what it feels like each time you get it to the table. But that's going to be, new epics, new boss epics, new cities that are customized, all these things that change up the game state, hopefully making it one that I pull out more frequently because honestly it's a pretty fun game. Moving on to there, we have Cascadia. Cascadia, this is a light game. This is going to be coming to you from Flat Out Games, who brought you Calico. Cascadia is going to be a similar tile laying game in which you're trying to. I compared it to Sprawlopolis. I played the online version. I don't know if it's still up, but they had an online version you can play, and I compared it to Sprawlopolis as a game system where you have to manage both the acquisition of things and the scoring of those things. So you're going to be given these scoring cards in the way they score in different ways, and each tile you take is both going to give you a token that goes in one of the tiles, as well as creating a construct that you have to match into your scoring system. So you might want a particular tile, but you might want to actually have the eagle from a different tile. So you have to balance these different things as you try to build out your board. It looks like a fun, simple puzzle thing, similar to Sprawlopolis. I expect this to be light and fun and simple optimization of the puzzle you are building. It's one that you can check out because, obviously, late pledge. And from there we go to Dungeon Universalis. Now, Dungeon Universalis is a game that was so overwhelming in what it offered that I wasn't pulled in because it was so overwhelming in what it offered. And by the way, I will attempt to have links down below to every one of the pledge managers, not to the campaign page, to the pledge managers. Sometimes it's easy to just click through to one to the next. Other times, unfortunately, it's not so easy. Every single Kickstarter creator, every single one, if you have an available late pledge, if you have somewhere people can buy your game after the fact, throw that late pledge button up on the Kickstarter. Do not make people hunt around or subscribe to my channel to find it. Or alternatively, don't throw your button up so that people have to subscribe to my channel or other Kickstarter creator channels or whatnot, Kickstarter content channels, in order to find out about your Kickstarter. Point is, do yourself a favor and put those buttons up there. Not everyone is watching YouTube to find out what they can back. Dungeon Universalis is going to be giving you an all-in-one dungeon experience, one that you can, all-in-one dungeon experience. It gives you tons and tons and tons and tons and tons, and that's where I lost interest because it was just too much of a game system for me. But from people who played it, it seems to be rated really well, and this was the second edition and late pledge available. Frostpunk the board game, another one that I tried not to back and successfully did not back for this one. This one, I mean, everyone who played this game seemed to love it. It is a solo experience, but also one that you could play cooperatively. So the biggest critique I saw potentially was around the idea that it feels like a solo game that you are sharing with others as opposed to a true cooperative experience. And so that might make a game that's wrong for you. For myself, I was not pulled in by the theme of the game. I tend to not be a fan. First of all, I wasn't a fan of the IP. Also not a fan of the theme of the world beating you down as you try to survive. I've gotten occasional questions on that. Why do I like Machina Arcana? Why do I not like this? Why do I not like that? Those are great questions, and I'm not trying to condense it to 30 seconds per title. Moving on from there, we have Taktiki. Taktiki was a fun one. I enjoyed this. This is an abstract game. Now, it is pricey for the game you're getting. If you're comparing this to potentially getting Tak or Santorini, I think both those games are better, and you should pick those up first. But if you already have a solid bunch of abstracts, Taktiki does something different in the gameplay it provides. It has an aspect of the hidden, what's that game? The game, I can't remember the name of the game, and I don't have time to sit there and pause. There's a classic game, Stratego. So it has aspects of Stratego combined with a more refined abstract system. Overall, I quite enjoyed it. Not one that I'm confident about long-term in my collection, but one that I've enjoyed every single play of it. I covered it for the channel, and I backed this one, and late pledge available. Moving on, we have Nova Aetas Renaissance. This is going to be from Ludus Magnus Studio, and this is another epic campaign game that I did manage to successfully hold off on, not for lack of interest, but for lack of time and looking for reasons. I wasn't pulled in by this game for some reason. Something about it didn't pull me in the way I would like to be pulled in by the games I'm backing, even though it did have this guy right over here. And so overall, I ended up, I'll set a few other stuff as well, but overall I ended up passing on it. Looked cool, looked interesting, but too much game, and I just don't have enough time. But Nova Aetas Renaissance from Ludus Magnus Studios is still available to back. From there we have Darkest Dungeon, the board game, another Mythic Games. This one I did pass on, despite the fact that the miniatures again looked amazing, despite the fact that again they gave you a $100 pledge with tons of content and a great value around it. I mean, look at these things. These things, they pull in the character from the video game in a way that was amazing. Look at these stuff. These create incredible stuff, and you could have to buy for this in the Pledge Manager. Unfortunately, some of these campaigns are going to be more expensive, or having to buy the early birds in the Pledge Manager, so factor that in as well. But for me, I just wasn't pulled in by the gameplay at all. Now, unlike the other game, unlike Hell, where I wasn't pulled in, but also I just wasn't pushed away, I just didn't see anything. Hell, the Last Saga, not Hell, Darkest Dungeon to me did look like a game that had a little bit too much fiddliness, a little too much maintenance around the game engine it was building. That's why I passed on it. Then again, I think it was Mythic Games' highest funded game to date with $5,600,000, 28,000 backers, and Pledge Manager available. From there we have Freedom 5, a Sentinel Comics board game. This is from Arcane Wonders, and this is one that has the miniatures and coming to retail a standee version. So if you want standees, they'll be in retail standees. They had a ton of content. This is one of my favorite campaigns for the year. This is one, I don't even know if I included it in my favorite campaigns. I probably should have, because while as a game I liked it, but I'm still on the fence. I like the core system of the game. Aspects of it were a little fiddly to me. Then again, fiddly is relative to your experience with Arkham Horror or Sentinels, the card game. But ultimately for me, it was a little fiddly in terms of the maintenance and management of the game system, but I did like the game, and I very much like that you really did feel like a superhero as you zip from location to location using your unique character and their abilities and the way they play out. But the campaign was so much fun to follow. The way they iterated, changed, threw things at your face, painted miniatures deluxe, throwing on gigantic, ridiculous, over-the-topness for this game. I am very excited to get this game. I'm not sure whether it'll stay in my collection in terms of that aspect. Will the gameplay be refined enough to be a game that I love, that a game that I'm interested in? But as far as fan service to anyone who likes the Sentinels Multiverse universe, this is one you should be paying attention to. From there we have Endless Winter. I don't need to say much about this game. Late pledge available, and this is one of this is my favorite Kickstarter from 2021. One of the most anticipated games that I'm looking forward to in terms of just getting this game. This game is so, oh my gosh, this game is good. It is my favorite from the genre of worker placement deck building games. Absolutely amazing. I mean I have multiple stuff around this game. This is the game. I mean this one is my pick of 2020 in terms of Kickstarter. Primal's looking like my pick of 2021. No late pledge available for Primal, but Endless Winter there certainly is. Shogun no Katana, another one I had the opportunity to play. This is a solid game. I like the puzzle I was getting. This is one that I backed as well. Looking forward to adding it to my collection. Effectively, Shogun no Katana is an optimization game around, it's a very tight game. You're building out your sword, you're building out your katana in your forge and trying to get your most points by building multiple swords and getting more workers and all these things. I'm looking forward to the modules the game adds, because the game itself is very tight, very, you have to make every single move count in this game until you ultimately built your Shogun no Katana, your master final sword in this game. Solid game, really liked it, and late pledge available. Moving on, we have Sakura Arms, Duel Under Falling Cherry Blossoms. This is going to be one of those two-player games where you have a card row similar to a bunch of other games, similar to Twisted Fable, similar to Flash Duel. And this is going to be coming to you from Level 99 Games again. And this was, I think this was originally owned by AEG, if I recall correctly, and they brought you both the original as well as new content for the game, so two new full-on packs, whatever it is. If you like the style of gameplay, there's a late pledge available. For myself, I tend to avoid these two-player conflict-driven, there are certainly exceptions. From there, we have Kokopelli from Queen Games. Kokopelli is going to be a Stefan Feld game, if I recall correctly. A Stefan Feld game with an interesting, feel to the game. I don't remember much about the gameplay. I covered it briefly on Kickstarter. Overall, the price versus what you got extra, I recommend picking it up at retail, but ultimately, if you are interested in it, check this one out. By the way, I actually am liking Winter Kingdom from Queen Games. I'm liking quite a lot. Did not get on Kickstarter. Sons of Pharrell. Sons of Pharrell is going to be by Tabula Games. This is one that I was, again, this goes into the category of one that potentially is the best game ever. For some reason, I wasn't personally pulled in by this experience. It looked simultaneously interesting, and yet I didn't get a clear feel for the gameplay or why I need to add this to my own collection. So I ultimately passed on it just because I try to pass on things these days because too many Kickstarters. But it did look interesting, and if it looks interesting to you, late pledge available. From there, we have Core Space Firstborn. This is another one that I passed on. Many people said I should get it. This might be right up my alley, but again, if I'm not, I find more and more if I'm not certain about a game, I just try not to spend money on it. And Core Space is one that it looked a little bit too involved, a little bit too much as a miniatures game almost, as opposed to a board game with miniatures. But if that calls to you, then this game is rated well on Board Game Geek. I can't remember the exact rating, but it's like an 8 point something on Board Game Geek, which is a solid way to jump into Core Space. From there, we have Raid the card game. This is going to be a Viking card game, a little micro deck building game. Ultimately, the game looked interesting. The price point was a little high for the content you're getting. Then again, it's cheaper than Radlands in terms of the content you're getting there. But Radlands comes from an established company, and Raid comes from, well, I'm not actually sure who the company is for Raid. Let's check that out. Raid coming to you from Modern Games. Looked interesting. The art looked amazing. The graphic design was really elegant, really well done. Looked like an intriguing game, one that I plan on paying attention to, and late pledge available. The Librarian's Adventure card game. The Librarian's Adventure card game is going to be one that I expected to completely pass on, but ultimately the people who play this game seem to like this by everything epic, and it's combining an IP with a generic deck building game. There is nothing here that I should be paying attention to, and yet, like Power Rangers, the card game, I heard enough people who seem to like the game, who seem to be pulled in by something the game did particularly well, and so, Librarian's Adventure card game, if you want to check that one out, go ahead, late pledge available. Pachacuna. Pachacuna is one that I tried. It's an abstract game. It's a solid system. I wasn't pulled in enough at the end of the day. I felt that the maintenance and the setup wasn't worth the payoff because there is a lot of setup each time you reconfigure the game, but it is a solid system. It's a solid system of basically pick up and deliver and building strategic pathways through the mountains or the valleys depending on which color you are, and trying to take advantage of your buy and sell and score the most points, or well, not really points, ultimately get, you know, the sales of the goods you need before the game ends. From there, we have Atlantis Rising Monstrosities from Elf Creek Games. Geez, what are we, 25 in? How long is this video going to be? Atlantis Rising Monstrosities from Elf Creek Games. This is going to be the expansion to Atlantis Rising, bringing you more content to a game system. This is the problem with Kickstarter. This is the point in time where I wanted to get back the base game just so I can play and have the expansion, even while I'm complaining that I need to get rid of more games. Kickstarter just makes things more shiny, makes things more interesting. Don't get me wrong, Atlantis Rising is a great game, one that I would never turn down. Ultimately, one that left my collection, though, because the aspect of the fact that as the game progresses, you do less, not more, although it's not entirely true. It's a little bit of a mixed bag because your workers get less done, but you've also built up these upgrades that will help you out. So it is a mix, one that I kind of want to try again, maybe at a convention sometime. I don't know. Eventually it'll either, you know, make its way back into my collection or not. We will see. From there, we have Star Scrappers Orbital. This can be from the designer of Terraforming Mars, bringing you effectively the way it was described as Terraforming Mars meets Galaxy Truckers, and that sounds intriguing to me. I am certainly interested in this game. I will be picking it up at retail. I did not see enough of a reason to get it doing the Kickstarter. There were a few extra bonuses, nothing I cared enough about to pay the extra shipping plus premium plus whatever, but overall, if you're interested in this game, if you like Terraforming Mars, if you like Galaxy Truckers, pay attention to this one. Join 2,888 backers, and from there we have Rune, Reprint, and Micro Expansion. Now, this is one that there was a great video for covering how the game plays. You're trying to close off these patterns of different hexes, these patterns of colors as you build the game. There was a great, somewhere on this page, there's a great 1 minute interview. It was 1 minute overview. I can't remember exactly what it is. Somewhere on this page, there's a 2 minute gameplay where they go through like 2 games of Rune. Really gives you a good feel for how the game plays, and it's like a $10 game, so, you know, there's that. From there we have Kapow, the Fast and the Furious. This is going to be from White Wizard Games, actually from Wise Wizard Games. They recently rebranded their name. This is going to be Kapow from Wise Wizard Games, not from Robert Dowsry. That's the problem with changing Kickstarter names. And this is bringing you a dice building game where you clip on the dice faces, similar to Dice Throne, no, Dice Forge. Similar to Dice Forge is what the game is going to be like. And Kapow is bringing you superheroes combined with modular dice building. For myself, I wasn't pulled in enough to really, and also the art. Like, I mean, this art is great, but also not something that pulls me in. So overall, I wasn't pulled in. I passed on this one, but I am intrigued to see how the game actually is. Is it good? Is it not good? Is it medium? Is it forgettable? I have no idea. And from there, we're talking about Burn Cycle. Not speaking of anything. Burn Cycle from Chip Theory Games. This is one that I have the opportunity to play online. There's a late pledge available. Overall, I believe believe this one is either a good game or a great game. What I mean by that is it was a solid game. The game I played online was solid, very well done, but I see no reason to play Burn Cycle over Too Many Bones, which is a game that I vastly prefer. Now, they are different experiences, don't get me wrong, but both of them have very much an optimization around managing your chips and your abilities and all of that to share overlapping similarities while being vastly different in the gameplay. Now, Burn Cycle is one of those Kickstarters they made it very clear this is still in the production phase, this is still in the testing and iteration phase, and they're still collecting feedback and trying to adjust it. Effectively, I was less of a reviewer and more of a playtester with public opinion, so a little bit of a hybrid there. It's one that I'm looking forward to. I'm very intrigued as to the final product, whether it'll be good, great, medium. Well, again, I think it'll be good no matter what, because the base gameplay was already good, and they're constantly iterating and taking into account feedback, and it's shipped 30 games. But the good news is you can back it on, late pledge now, or you can just wait and get on their site for like 20, 30 bucks more, because they do keep their prices for their games fairly fixed. From there, forgot my cup of water. Then there we have the Transcontinental. This is going to be from Glenn Dresser. I don't know the name of the company. Transcontinental is one that a lot of people spoke very highly about. Rado was very, very hyped about it. Lots of other people were as well. This is one that won Canadian Design Contest. I don't know much about the gameplay myself. I looked into it enough doing the campaign to be able to talk about it competently, but I wasn't pulled in by it. It looked interesting, but didn't pull me in. But if you are pulled in by whatever this train game is promising, whatever this is offering, not like an 18X train game, but whatever it's offering, then late pledge available. Next up, we have the Pursuit of Happiness. This is going to be by Artipia Games, and the Pursuit of Happiness is one that I liked the game. I played the original base game way back in the day. I liked it. I didn't love it. I thought it was intriguing in the story building it was giving, but the mechanics of the game, I felt that there were other lighter games I'd rather play. But if you want that gigantic, ridiculous, over-the-top big box, and it's one that I have heard is good solo as well, so I've kind of been intrigued to pull it back to get it solo. Well, if you want to get absolutely everything for the game at a decent price, all things considered, especially because it's in print, in between print runs frequently, then that's going to be the Pursuit of Happiness. Then we have Dark Venture Battle of the Ancients. This is one that I backed last minute from Rob Lemon. I'm not at all pulled in by the aesthetic of the game. This does not appeal to me at all. The lack of miniatures, all these things, it just looked not like my cup of tea at all. And yet I know enough people who tried it that were pulled in. I know both Quacklope as well as some people on his Patreon who just really enjoyed the game and ended up backing it. Whatever. It is what it is. Moving on from there is going to be Mission Catastrophe. Mission Catastrophe is going to be by Cardboard Alchemy, and this was not their first Kickstarter, but their first board game Kickstarter, although not from people new to the space, from people who have a history in the space with other companies, other whatever. Mission Catastrophe is going to be bringing you a ridiculous, over-the-top, crazy, zany, semi-co-op, but with different modes too. So it's not purely semi-co-op, but it's one where you're trying to escape a spaceship and ensure you get your way to the life pods before everything self-destructs. So you're all working together to ensure the spaceship stays alive, but only one person is ultimately escaping. It is one that has every single problem. I played this one. It's one that has every single problem that I attribute to semi-co-op, and yet it somehow manages to work at the same time. It manages to kind of end up working for the most part, even though it is theoretically exposed to the same problems as semi-co-op will, possibly because of the lighter game, the shorter playtime. I don't know the exact reason, but the tons of abilities, the various locations you can use, all in all have me intrigued to try the final game as well as the different play modes. Then we have Rule Benders. Rule Benders by Game Brewer. This is where we start catching up on fairly recent Kickstarters. As we went through all those, we're starting to get to the past 2-3 months, whatever it is. But Rule Benders by Game Brewers is one that did not pull me in at the end of the day. Late pledge still available. Looked intriguing, looked interesting, looked like it gave you different ways you can adjust the game state, but not necessarily in the sense that you're genuinely bending the rules, so much as tweaking stats around the game. But late pledge available. This is from Game Brewer. Game Brewer has a ton of games coming. They're just knocking them out. They had Rule Benders. They had the Russian one, I can't remember what it's called, and they have a Hippocrates or whatever it is, and medical one that looks really, really well done. But then we have Nemo's War Journeys End Expansion and Ultimate Edition. This is going to be Victory Point Games. This is bringing you Nemo's War, a game that is one of the highest rated games ever that I have no interest in playing again. I did not enjoy my play of Nemo's War, but many people do, and I'm probably wrong, or just opinions vary, or any of that. But this is bringing you all the content for the game in a big box and everything, absolutely everything. If this was your time to jump into Nemo's War, or if you're a fan of Nemo's War, this is the opportunity or the chance to jump in on this game. Then there we have Bard Sung. Thank you, Heroes. Bard Sung by Steamforged Games. Steamforged Games, to which I will be covering Monster Hunter World shortly enough. But Bard Sung is one that I didn't plan on backing initially and ended up jumping in because, first of all, they have enough miniatures and galore and everything else that they will hold their value. Second of all, as a fun fact, back, they have been giving you extra miniatures throughout the course of the Pledge Manager. They've been giving you all these things you're seeing here are stuff that were unlocked doing the Pledge Manager, not doing the campaign. So if you tapped out, if you sat there and said, you know what, I just wish Bardsong had 8 more miniatures and then I'd be back in the game, well then jump on in, because it has 8 more miniatures and you'll be back in more than 8, whatever this is, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11-ish more miniatures or whatever it is, different sculpts or whatnot, giving you more content for a game that has been slowly unlocked in the Pledge Manager. So this is your opportunity to jump in, because you can jump in on the Pledge Manager. This is one that I did go all in on, but I do regret going all in on. Take that for what you will in terms of your decision. And from there we talk about Upzone. Upzone, I don't have a lot to say. I covered this briefly on the channel. They asked me to look at it. I was like, I don't know how to review this, but I'll pull it out and put it on camera. I don't mind. It does look cool. The premise looks cool. The usefulness to me in my life is non-existent. I don't play miniature games. I don't play RPGs, and I'm not really going to be outfitting my Blood Rage with this. I don't know what to say there. But anyway, looks like it's cool modular terrain. From what I remember, the comments I got at the time on my video said it's incredibly expensive for what it is. I have no context to what the price should or shouldn't be, but it looked cool. From there we have Mummagy, which I covered briefly on the channel. I didn't play the game. I covered it as one of my 2 backs or not 2 backs. 2,333 backers. It looked like a light little set collection style game. Looked intriguing, looked interesting. I did not end up backing this one in the end, although I was intrigued by the game, and so that is going to be Mummagy. From there we have Vindication. Vindication, my number 10 game of all time, and one that I need to play it more. I haven't played it in a few months, and I want to pull it out again. But Vindication is one that is a puzzly experience that I love. I love the combination of so many different factors that you have to figure out your way through as you go through it. And they gave you so much content. And the problem is they did one of those things where they gave you a very solid all-in tier with too much content that I ended up backing the all-in tier, and will probably sell my base game and Leaders and Chronicles, or base game and one of these. Whatever the expansion I have, base game and Leaders and Alliances will be sold by me later. But I have the full all-in tier to get everything for the game, which is not anything that you actually need, because the base game alone gives you so much content that I haven't explored the full base game, let alone all the expansions. I do mix in some of the expansions, but not really a lot, and you don't need to. So if you're on the fence of Vindication, jump in at an early, easy pledge level. If you're not on the fence, when you just want it all, then just go all in. From there we have Darwin's Journey. Again, recent Kickstarters here, 16,759 backers, coming to you from Thundergriff Games. Thundergriff Games, who I mentioned the other day, Asmodee is now picking up the distribution for Thundergriff Games, and is it Thundergriff or Thunderworks? I always get this wrong. I think it's Thunderworks. There's 2 different, I don't remember. It's one, where's the logo? I need the logo and bigger. Thunder something. I think it's Thundergriff. I don't know. There's Thunderworks and Thundergriff. One does role player and like role player adventures, and one does Darwin's Journey, Wari, and other games like that. So it's Thunder something games. But Darwin's Journey is going to be a heavy euro that was well lauded by everyone. Everyone seemed to be loving this game, or most people actually. I remember a few people I watched playing it seemed to be okay with it without loving it, but overall seemed to be well received. I ended up backing this one because I believe it'll hold its value if it's not a game for me, and if it is a game for me, well then, the deluxeified version of the game that's for me. Tinner's Trail, going to come into you from Alley Cat Games, who currently have Eternal Palace on Kickstarter. Eternal Palace, I did end up backing. Tinner's Trail, I did not. Effectively, Tinner's Trail is a reprint of the original Tinner's Trail, a game that I liked but did not absolutely love. It needed tweaks, and this new version is giving you tweaks. I don't know if those tweaks make it one that will stay in my collection or not, but if you're interested in backing or late pledging this one, well, that's why it's in the video. From there we have CMON Presents the Animation Collection, which is just, you know, overpriced pre-painted miniatures for a game. Now I think this one will hold its value, but it doesn't have the same level of confidence that a typical CMON Kickstarter does, because they did one of those like slow tiered unlocks everything in. Maybe that's because of the IP, maybe because of the shorter campaign, I don't know. Overall, I'm intrigued, I'm interested. I did back it, I did go all in. I did not get the extra wacky races because that too many reviews of that were just mediocre to spend $80 on a mediocre game that my kids might enjoy. But the rest of it, I did spend $160 on games that my kids might enjoy. So maybe my logic there is a little flawed. But Scooby-Doo the board game, plus the Teen Titans and Looney Tunes, all in all, went all in, got it all. I know I like Scooby-Doo. I'm happy with that one. The other 2, I don't know where they'll be staying. We'll see. Maybe I'll sell them. We'll find it out. But if you want to jump that in, keep in mind, CMON Pledge Managers do have more limited windows. And speaking of more limited windows, I also will have another one shortly that, well, we'll explain in a second. Castle Mad King Ludwig Secret Collector's Edition. This is going to be the late pledge for Castle Mad King Ludwig, which recently just ended. Again, we're getting to the part where these are recent campaigns, so, you know, we'll cover them again in a further late pledge. But if you want to jump in on this is going to be the deluxe version of Castle Mad King Ludwig. Great if you want more or better Castle of Mad King Ludwig. Carnegie Deluxe Edition, coming to you from Quinette Games. I just talked about this briefly because I just did a deluxeification video where I talked about deluxeified stuff, including one of the most deluxeified games I own, which is the Carson City Big Box. Now, Now, Carnegie, I don't believe, is offering you that level of premium, but they are offering you a beautiful box, insert, extras, goodies, metal stuff. I think they had metal stuff. I don't remember. I don't even remember if the game had coins, so ignore me on the metal stuff. I don't know if that's actually true. We can take a look here. They had like other stuff. They had metal shaped markers. There we go. And a timeline metal marker. So they had some metal stuff, but not really metal coins in this game. But Carnegie is going to be an excellent game that gives you a ton of decision space around a tight optimization game that, for me, I needed the Kickstarter extras to jump in on this game because I needed the variability that they would provide. Which brings us to, we have what, 2 left. We're going to go 1 more left to switch the order. We have Auto 8 Game Over, which is going to be an abstract game that looked intriguing. This is one that I covered briefly. That it looked intriguing. It looked like you place your piece, you try to score, rinse and repeat, do that again and again. Overall, still available for late pledge. And that brings us to the final of the 48 games that we are covering that are new, which means after this one, you can still keep watching or you can tune it all out. But Zombicide, Undead or Alive. Zombicide, Undead or Alive, which is a really recent Kickstarter. The only reason I'm covering this one now is to tell you that, based on the way CMON typically runs their late pledges, the late pledge windows are shorter than many other campaigns. So by the time we do another video 3 months from now, do not expect Zombicide, Undead or Alive to be in that video. So this is your final warning from this channel to cover it, probably, maybe. But ultimately, this is giving you a ton of stuff and a ton of value. If you are on the fence about Zombicide, if you are on the fence about this game, just back it and sell it if you don't like it. You will get your money back whether you've played it or not played it. That's the way these pledges work. As far as going all in, you'll still get your money back. It just might be a little harder to find the right buyer because they have to be willing to spend more money. But there's a ton of content added to this game. I'm excited for it despite having way too much Zombicide already. But more, and more. We may have a problem here. From there. Whew. Okay, cool. Ready? Now we're going to rattle through the remaining 52 because I told you 100 games and I aim to please. So 100 games coming up. By the way, if you have a chance, watch this Arma video. It's hilarious, if I say so myself. I really, honestly, even my video, I like, so I'm biased, I like watching the videos that I do with my wife a lot. And sure, too, don't get me wrong, but specifically me and Rena, I have fun with them. But Arma is a lot of fun. It's basically 25 minutes of tears and laughter and all of that. And now let's go back to your regularly scheduled late pledges. So, I'm going to be rattling through these very quickly because these 52 were on the last video. So it's going to be hopefully a sentence or two of words without as much context as I gave for the others, which had 30 to 45 seconds per game. So Steampunk Rally Fusion, another game from Roxley Games, deluxe version of the Steampunk Rally, a game that I like but moved on from. Adventures in Neverland is one that I covered. This is one I don't know how to do this in a sentence to. I don't know how to do a sentence to. This is no way I'm going to do it. Adventures in Neverland, it's available. We have Aeon's Trespass Odyssey, a game that has so much content I couldn't dive into it. I just couldn't. There's so much content. Now keep in mind there is a big bump in the price since the last time, so it's gonna be a big bump in the pledge manager. Still cheaper than retail supposedly. Wolfenstein the board game by Arkane Studios. This is one that looks interesting, looks promising. I'm not pulled in by Arkane Studios. I am pulled in by the game. I plan to eventually try it. Moving on from there, we have Catapult Kingdoms, a game that looks like it's fun to play with your kids, but probably one that you shouldn't get if you didn't get the early pledge. From there we have Dante the Watcher's Prophecy, a game that looked intriguing, a game that looked like it had chip theory games aspects of the game, but in a very different game system, one that I'm interested in but not willing to take the bet on at the moment. Die in the Dungeon. I thought this was fulfilled, but I still see an order now on this one, so it may or may not be available. Sometimes that happens on these Kickstarters. Divinity Original Sin, I've done a full video on this one. I'm intrigued. I will be covering it again in my 24 upcoming top 24 campaign games video I have coming later this week. We have Foundations of Rome. This is one that was a surprise hit. I did not back it during the original Kickstarter. I had the opportunity to play it doing whatever, and I late pledged it. So this one's still going to be available in late pledge until they come back to you with, the actual miniature wash or whatever it is on the game. Oh, wait, final notice. 1 second. When did this happen? So, final notice. Okay, let's just find this out together, because I didn't realize this. It says the update will close this tonight. Okay. Well, this may no longer be available. I'll see on that. Anyways, moving on from there, we have Frosthaven. Frosthaven, which is a decent chunk of upgrade in the Pledge Manager, so we'll see what happens there. And from there, we have Genotype, a Mendelian genetics game. This is one that I don't remember much about. I don't think I covered on the channel, but late pledge is available for it. From there, we have Storm Sunder, Heirs of Ruin. I'll be talking about this more in my upcoming campaign games video, or not upcoming, my 24 epically large campaign game videos, so watch more information about that. Pledge Manager will be available for this one for a while, I assume. Age of Atlantis from Eldorado Games. This is one that I believe will be a good game for me. I don't know. It looked intriguing. I like the powers, the abilities, the upgrade pass. Looked intriguing. We'll see how it plays out. We have Relics of Rajavihara. If you like solo puzzle experiences, this one is still available to late pledge. I I have the prototype. I should probably play it to see if I want to late pledge it, because I haven't actually late pledged it yet. From there, we have Who Goes There second edition from Certifiable Studios. This gives you the second edition of Who Goes There, a game that was already liked by other people, and you can late pledge it. We have Waste Nights, which again I'm confused by. It still says you can late pledge. It still seems available, but I thought it delivered, so I have no idea what's going on with these delivered late pledges. We have Titans, historical fantasy miniature board games. If you haven't subscribed to go on board, make sure to do so, because they are bringing you the Witcher board game later this year. So we'll see how that plays out. We have Tiny Epic Pirates, which I believe is also delivering. It is still available to pre-order. Tiny Epic Dungeons just ended. Tiny Epic Pirates is going to be the pirate version of Tiny Epic Dungeons, I guess. We have the Isofarian Guard. Lots of people seem to be very intrigued by this game. I wasn't pulled in by enough. I have not late pledged it, but you can jump in this one. This narrative slash gameplay slash whatever game looks intriguing. We have Sea of Legends, which I believe is delivering as well. So again, potentially not available, but I sure seem to be able to add it to my cart and jump on this one. Sea of Legends is going to be an app-based pirate exploration-y game with, you know, stuff and pirates and things. We have Hybris Disordered Cosmos, one that looked intriguing, and again, I can't do this in 2 sentences. We have Perseverance Castaway Chronicles by Mind Clash Games. I didn't back this one because Mind Clash Games, I need to play the ones I have first before I jump in on more of them, but you know, that self-control only lasts so long. We have Mantis Falls, a game of trust. Looks like a great 2-player interesting back and forth game. Looked intriguing, looked interesting, also a little expensive for the content you get. I believe it's because it's all made locally or whatnot. We have Dead Reckoning, a game that I did not back. Longer story there, but you should totally back this if you're interested in this game. This game is excellent, absolutely excellent. Had the opportunity to play it. Really looking forward to this version of John D. Clare's card crafting system. We have Shadow Kingdoms of Valeria, which you can pre-order this one. You can also jump in on Card Kingdoms of Valeria. Currently has its cooperative expansion, Dark Veil, Dark Sworn, something like that. I think it's Dark Sworn, and that one I will be covering, or I already covered that one, I believe, and I'm backing that one. We have Spirits of the Forest, Moonlight from Gonzalo from is this by Thundergriff? Thundergriff or Thunderworks Games, one of those two. Spirits of the Forest gives you a lighter style game, but overall one that people seem to like at the same time, so we'll see. We have Roll Camera, the filmmaking board game, a game in which you are going to literally be making your own film, and that's still available. We have Endangered New Species, a dice crafting game from the Grand Gamers Guild, the dice drafting game. You roll dice and you assign them to different locations, but it's a cooperative version of that game, and Endangered looks good. People I know who've played it have enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to it. We have Ultimate Werewolf Extreme, which is one that I don't jump in on because I like my hidden role games to not have a moderator, and this one does have a moderator or someone taking care of the game or whatever it is, a role master, DM, whatever they are, but either way, this can be the giant all-in version of that game in case you want to spend $100 in it. Speaking of hundreds of dollars, if you want to spend hundreds of dollars on Hamburg and Amsterdam, the newer versions of Macau and Bruges from Stefan Feld, then jump into this one. It's Queen Games, but it's also, so it's expensive, but it's, you know, not really available elsewhere at the moment. They don't plan on making it available to retail, at least as of now, so we'll see how that plays out. We have Streets, which I believe Dave Clarkson and Fish Games, they are actually coming out with an expansion to Villagers shortly, so pay attention to that. But if you want to jump in on Streets, here's your opportunity. Growl, Madness, and Plagues, another sort of hidden role game with a very interesting, watch the video on this one. This looked more intriguing than I would have thought it was, so it looks interesting. We have Planet Unknown, a game that I am very excited about. This was one of the games I am most excited about from getting. This is going to be from Adam Relberg from Adam's Apple Games. They also have Four Humors, which I don't think Four Humors is available to late pledge yet, but when it is, I'll be letting you know, because that one is also excellent. Planet Unknown, though, I think that one's going to be my polyomino game to go to. We have Monsters on Board, going to me from Final Frontier Games. Final Frontier Games also has, like, Solani and The Girl Who Wrote the Stars, or some other games they have coming to Kickstarter very shortly this week, but Monsters on Board is going, I think it's this week, it might be next week, but Monsters on Board is going to be their dice drafting game. Looked intriguing, looked interesting. I wasn't ultimately pulled in, but looked interesting. We have Endangered Orphans, House of Wrath, another game by Certifiable Studios. Looked like it had gameplay elements similar to like Mr. Jack's, the Mr. Jack series of games, The Phantom to Opera. One that I'm interested in, haven't actually backed this one, but paying attention to. We have Into Deep from Burnt Island Games. Ooh, speaking of which, let's go to Into Deep. Do they have an update over here? They have over here a tease. Something coming up from Burnt Island Games. I have no idea what it is. Maybe it's like a precursor story to In the Hall of the Mountain King. I have no idea. Either way, Into Deep is an interesting game, puzzly experience, one that I'm excited for, waiting for it to come so I can, you know, figure out those optimization of puzzle game states to ultimately win. We have Forgotten Depths, a co-op dungeon adventure. Don't know enough about this game, but it looks like a co-op dungeon adventure. We have The Seventh Citadel, Explore, Build, You Are the Hero. This is the, well, I cover it more on my video coming later this week about Epic Campaign games, so you can watch it there, but it's still available to late pledge. We have Set a Watch, Swords of the Coin. Set a Watch, Swords of the Coin is going to be by Rock Manor Games. This is the expansion to Set a Watch, which I recently just got back. It's, here we go. So over here, set a watch over here. I have this version of the game that I want to play. I played it before. I liked it, and I got rid of it, but I got it back. It's a fun solely I think you play it with more than one player, but I would just play it solo personally. And it's an optimization survival situation where you have to figure out how to line up your people to ultimately survive the night and whatnot. But not in a survivable sense where you lose things as whatever. Long story. Untamed Feral Faction Spirit Strike Edition is going to be a 2-player, combining powers based game, still available to back. We have Fantastic Factories Manufactions. It's going to be the expansion of Fantastic Factories, a game that I liked, didn't love. This is more content for that game. It was a solid game, so I do recommend checking it out. People do seem to love this one. Thunderstone Quest, The Enemies Among Us, more content for Thunderstone Quest, which is, Thunderstone Quest. We have Windward, another game by Eldorado Games. This is going to be the expansion and big box upgrade to the original Windward. Looking at an interesting game. We have Apogee, a new Space Tale. I don't think I actually covered this on a 2-back or not to back, but late pledge still available. We have Dungeon Fighter by Horrible Guild. I just covered Tiny Epic Turbo Cars, or whatever it is, Tiny Turbo Cars, which was a lot of fun. I do have Dungeon Fighter coming. I am intrigued as to whether this will be, light, fun, simple, silly, stupid. I don't really know where Dungeon Fighter will fall, but I will tell you, Tiny Turbo Cars is a blast, and if you play games with your friends for like funsies and beer and pretzels laughing out loud, Tiny Turbo Cars is a recommendation. Hogs of War, the miniatures game, one that I was intrigued by but didn't ultimately back at the end of the day, based on an IP that I don't care about. The gameplay it looked like it had aspects of fun stuff plus polyomino base building. I am a sucker for polyomino games across the board. We have Cactus Town. Maybe I should back this. Should I back Cactus Town? I'm going to leave this up on my tab. I'm going to move to the next one. Cactus Town has action programming, looks silly, looks fun, looks interesting. I wasn't pulled in by the art or the miniatures, so I didn't get it, but maybe I should. I don't know. I'll decide on Cactus Town. We have Dungeon Drop, Drop Too Deep, and Tavern Tales still available. This is going to be the expansion to Dungeon Drop with more Dungeon Drop goodness. I have this on myself, the original. Have to play that one, see if I like it. We have High Rise, the Ultra Plastic Edition. This is going to be the expansion to High Rise, giving you deluxeified components from Jill Hova. We have Twisted Fable. Speaking of those games, we have 2 players going back and forth on a grid. Twisted Fable, still on my shelf, solid game. I'm interested in this one. I like the system. I didn't love aspects of it, but I overall like the system. One I need to get to the table again. We have Campaign Trail 2nd Edition and Green Party by Grey Fox Games, a game that one of my viewers hounded me to do a video and a late pledge video on it, and so I eventually did cover it. The Campaign Trail Reprint and Community Party expansion is one that I'm intrigued by. Not 100% sure how it plays out, but it looks different enough that I'm interested in seeing how it goes. And then lastly, we have Bios Megafauna Angelenis by what's it called? By Sierra Madre Games. There's going to be 2 different games in one campaign. I always think it's weird when that happens. And from there, that is everything. So, that is a wrap. I don't know how long this video is. Let me see. I have a timestamp somewhere. 45 minutes. That's not bad. 100 games in 45 minutes. I'm okay with that. I thought this would be longer than that. Okay, cool. So apparently you still have the rest of the day to do whatever you need. This is Monday. For coming up this week, I will have, like I said a few times now, I'll have my giant epic campaign game video where I do a deep dive into 24 campaign games that I either own or have backed and what I think about them, and ultimately some of them are going to be going because I'm heading closer and closer towards doing a large purge of my collection, of getting rid of anything that isn't amazing. The price I pay, like right now, I'm just again playing more games because of content creation, and the price I have to pay for that is if I play 200 new games a year and I want to keep 50 of them, well, at a certain point, games have to filter out faster than they already are. I'm still going to keep the best of the best, or at least what I perceive to be the best of the best, but there are many games that I think are good but not great, but I still keep them because they're good, they're fun to play. And we'll see what happens there. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe. My voice finally breaks in the last 2 minutes, of course. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Have a great week. I will see you next week with a 2-back or not to back. I'll see you throughout the week with the regular daily scheduled content. And as always, have a good